Salam Ashraf, indeed the bravest of the brave. Brutality in Iraq is no accident. I wonder how many people in the Foreign Office and the Ministry of Defence, when they're writing what the future of Iraq might look like after the coalition intervened, and many hundred British troops gave their lives. I wonder if it crossed the minds of any of them that there would be a government in place, put in place, by the way, by the Iranians. Iraq gave specific undertakings in writing to the Americans when they handed over responsibility for the safety and security of people at Ashraf to the Iraqis, that they now would take on this responsibility. And when the Americans wrote and said, we've just spelt out here what this involves, they wrote back and said, yes, we fully understand that and we fully undertake to abide by this. They turn out not just to be liars, they turn out to be serial liars, because the ink was hardly dry on that letter before they then set up a committee for the suppression of Ashraf. And 2 years ago, they went in and killed and wounded residents there indiscriminately and repeated it on the 8th of April. What is it that our government, the United States and others, don't understand about Iran and its Iraqi lackeys? Something very peculiar going on in the chancellors of most of the major nations around the world. It drops bombs in Libya trying to protect civilians, and it won't raise a hand to stop thugs in Iraqi and Iranian uniforms murdering, because that's what it is. You don't take live ammunition and target people and pull the trigger. It's murder. There's no other word for it. They do that. It's sovereignty, isn't it? We do randomly pick and choose those on whose side we declare ourselves to be because they want democracy and freedom, and yet turn a blind eye to events in Iraq in which we had a large part in shaping. I don't understand it. Now, it's not quite true that the world has been totally silent on this matter. There have been statements deploring the violence in Iraq from Mr. Ad Malkat, the head of the United Nations Assistance Mission to Iran, the Baroness Ashton, who's the High Spokesman on Foreign Policy for the European Union, the Bar Council here, ministers in our own government, Secretary of State Clinton, Amnesty, and the European Parliament, right across the board, and other agencies of the UN. And I spoke to the UN Human Rights Deputy last week on the phone about this. Words. Words. Words don't stop what happened on April the 8th. And there are times under international humanitarian law, let alone humanity, where considerations of sovereignty should not get in the way of responsibilities which other governments had. It is eyewash, in my view, to pretend that 60,000 Americans still stationed in Iraq can't move and surround that camp and evict the Iraqis as the least you can do to try to safeguard the lives of those still at Ashraf. And if somebody says they have no authority, that's not true. They were not only leaders of the coalition that went into Iraq to change that regime, they've done it before in the past and then, afterwards, gone and asked the United Nations Security Council to publicly back it. There are circumstances in which the outrage against defenseless civilians is so severe, so menacing, that only action can be taken, and you then go back, if needs be, to the United Nations to get them to endorse that. So I say again, the words of regret, though welcome, are not enough. We need action. We need action backed by the threat of punitive sanctions, both against Iran and Iraq, and making clear that those responsible for the murders and offensive action in Ashraf would be taken to the International Criminal Court, and that forces within, Iraqi and Iranian forces within that camp should be told to withdraw, and if they don't withdraw, then they should be made to. No more than you will I take lectures from either Iran or Iraq about responsibilities under international law and bogus claims of sovereignty, when both of them have demonstrated for 2 or 3 decades now, in different forms, their contempt for their responsibilities, to which they have signed up under international humanitarian law. By their denial of medical supplies to those lying wounded in Ashraf, by the installation of 280 loudspeakers at points all around the camp perimeter. And a government minister told me that the Iraqi government had told him, and he seemed to believe it, I'll see if you do as well, that those loudspeakers are there because the leadership of the camp wouldn't let the relatives go in and talk to their loved ones, so they put up these loudspeakers so they could talk over the heads of the leaders of the people in the camp. 280 loudspeakers. Hands up those who believe that. Our government has the perfect right, under international law, as a member of the UN Security Council, to prepare a dossier to submit to the International Criminal Court, arguing the case for a reference there for those crimes against humanity against the Ashraf residents. As I've said, Iraq argues that Ashraf is about their sovereignty. No argument of that kind gives them any kind of legal or moral authority to go and do what they did there on April the 8th and what they're now planning to repeat. None. And that's why I say that outside nations, other nations, including the United Kingdom, I believe have got a bigger responsibility to step in and prevent that happening. I know I speak for you when I say we will not be silent. We will not stand aside. We will not stop demanding urgent action to prevent the 21st century of the Nazis' final solution.